climate change protests happening right now in Lower Manhattan. This is video from Chapter 4 showing the massive crowd marching from Foley Square near the courthouses down to the Battery. Among the people flooding city streets were students who were allowed to skip class today to join this cause. Also down there, activist Greta Thunberg, who recently sailed to Manhattan to drive home her points.
Why does popularity come more easily and at a more rapid pace to those who have the most destructive, oppressive messages than those who employ rationality, clear-mindedness, and balance? Greta Thunberg, the current climate alarmist Chicken Little megastar, and the latest in a long line of manipulated personalities parroting and promoting socialist, feminist, leftist, authoritarian, elitist talking points in order to provoke a Hegelian dialectic reaction from the pre-programmed irrational masses, currently has 3.7 million Twitter followers. Yeah, a Swedish schoolgirl with Asperger's syndrome who admittedly suffers from major depression and an eating disorder.
So when I was 11, I became ill. I fell into depression. I stopped talking and I stopped eating. In 2 months, I lost about 10 kilos of weight.
With theatrical performing parents and a Nobel Peace Prize winning relative, appears out of nowhere to become a worldwide sensation and the darling of fake stream media. Nothing peculiar about any of that.
Please disperse! Nothing to see here, please!
Make no mistake. Those who are promoting this climate change agenda and facilitate the popularization of this climate change cult following in their religion of climatology are not interested in the least in making the planet a cleaner place to live. They're only interested in tightening their control on those who live on said planet. So if you haven't heard of her, I'm going to do my part to promote the teenage antidote to the fear-mongering marionette called Greta Thunberg. Her name is Naomi. Take a listen to her perspective of the climate change narrative, as well as her thoughts on the intolerant and authoritarian leftist position, and at the end, I'll provide the information and the links to her social media pages so we can help elevate the voice of another teenager who can see through the psychological operations and socially engineered fabrication of climate alarmism.
I used to be a climate change alarmist myself because obviously, as a young girl, I grew up around the climate change hysteria. I grew up with it in the media, in my school books, and on TV. And I was the first one to, whenever my beliefs were questioned, I was the first one to ask the question, so are you saying that you are a climate change denier?
Coming out can still be a very tough thing to do. However, I'm not talking about coming out as gay, but coming out as non-leftist, coming out as conservative, or libertarian even, coming out as a voter for a specific party or a supporter of particular people in the political sphere, coming out as a harsh critic of the migration crisis, the welfare state, or coming out as a climate change skeptic. People like us tend to be shunned as evil and heartless immediately. This is a topic that has severely affected and even damaged some of my closest relationships.
The reason I don't like the term anti-Greta is because it suggests that I myself am an indoctrinated puppet, I guess, for the other side, that is just the blonde girl that is the opposite of Greta, that is basically just an instrument to promote the narrative, which is not what I want to do. I want to promote science and free speech and free thinking over being hysterical about the climate. So that's the message that I want to get out. I thought that by hugging the trees, I could save the planet, which quite frankly turned out not to be true. And I took pride in buying paper bags instead of plastic bags, but I didn't really make a change. Then eventually, in 2015 roughly, I became a skeptic, and at first not with regards to climate science, but rather with regards to the migration crisis in Germany. And once you start exploring these political topics that are more on the right, I guess, or in the libertarian department, things spiral out of control and you go down the path of understanding that many topics such as feminism, gender, socialism, postmodernism, and climate change hysteria, they're all related in some way and pave the way for a very bad kind of totalitarianism. And I'd always loved science as well, so naturally I had to become a climate change denier, a skeptic.
Fortunately, I have learned to stand up for my beliefs because the people who will hate me for it aren't worth my fear. I know where I stand. I know that I am not a Nazi or a racist or a right-wing extremist who wants to destroy planet Earth.
The other side, they call us the climate deniers, and I hate that term, absolutely, especially as a German. It is so rude to refer to someone as a climate denier. I don't want to do the same to the other side. I want them to realize that we are the climate realists. We want to talk facts and science, and we don't want to denounce other people. We don't want to shut down free speech. That's quite the opposite of what we want to do. Science, you see, is entirely based on intellectual humility, and it is important that we keep questioning the narrative that is out there instead of promoting it. And these days, climate change science really isn't a science at all. Those self-proclaimed scientists, we've heard it today, they draw their conclusions before even testing their hypothesis, and they base their assumptions on completely incoherent models, which is just an insult to science itself.
How do you get treated by the media differently than Greta does?
Oh, actually in Germany, there was a team from the mainstream media who wanted to denounce me as an anti-Semite. And of course I'm being labeled climate change denier, left and right. So yeah, I'm not being treated very nicely by the mainstream media.
But don't get me wrong, it can be extremely painful to realize that some of your closest friends don't actually care enough about you to keep an open mind for your most personal convictions. But Naomi, you might say, politics doesn't have to be an integral part of a friendship. Sexuality, on the other hand, is literally a part of someone's identity, and therefore it is way more personal. Actually, I disagree. How can I be friends with someone who views me as a Nazi, but isn't open to discussing the issue? Sometimes just not talking about the sensitive topics at all can be even more painful. I mean, what are you trying to tell me? That I am a despicable, indoctrinated idiot, but I'm just good enough to exchange a few memes with? What kind of friendship based on a lack of respect is that?
And I asked myself, what is the goal of all of this? And I believe, unfortunately, that the goal is to shame humanity. Climate change alarmism, at its very core, is a despicably anti-human ideology. And we are told to look down upon our achievements with guilt, with shame, and with disgust, and not even to take into account the many major benefits that we have gained from using fossil fuels as our main energy source. Because look around, we're living in such an amazing era of fast progress, of innovation, and we are not allowed to be proud of that at all. Instead, debates are being shut down, and scientists, real scientists, lose their jobs for performing the most genuine and innocent form of science there is, which is just real science, real skepticism. And that is not just an insult to science, that is an insult to the complexity of nature, and most importantly, it is an insult to the freedom of speech. And that's why we are here today, to speak up and to bring the spirit of science back to life again. And I hope that you will do the same with us together.
In conclusion, coming out as a non-leftist in the wrong environment can be incredibly intimidating as well. But if I don't stay true to myself, I can't be at peace with my own mind.
In general, if you could encapsulate what the problem is in her thinking, what is it?
She's stuck in a bubble. She only sees what's around her. And of course, because she's being sheltered by the media, by her parents, and on some level, I get her. I understand her, and I don't want to say that she's a brat or that she's she's way too privileged to understand that the struggle that the protesters on the other side are going through. On our side, we're dealing with the mainstream media shutting us down, with free speech being threatened in this whole climate change debate. But the problem in her thinking is that she's genuinely scared, I think, and so she's letting fear dictate her thoughts on the entire debate, and she's not keeping an open mind to our side. And so truly what I suggest is to everybody listening is just keep an open mind, stay open to the science, even if you think that it's completely ridiculous. And those people are just conspiracy theorists on the other side, and they're just climate change deniers, and they want to ruin the planet. Perhaps not. Perhaps we're not evil.
Again, her name is Naomi Zaibt, and my goal in making this video is so that if you believe what she says to be truthful, you can share it and make it go viral. It's rational thought like Naomi's and the desire for an honest dealing with the facts that starts setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of people who've been blinded by climate alarmist rock stars and incessant authoritarian fear-based mind control and propaganda techniques. Let's face it, we're only as free as the minds of those around us. While the pawn of the elites has 3.7 million followers on Twitter, Naomi has only 2,700 followers as of the recording of this video. In the description below, I'll provide the link to Naomi's Twitter page and YouTube channel. If her message resonates with you, follow her on social media. Let's do our part on behalf of the free market of ideas to empower her voice and give her a larger audience than Greta. If you visit her, let her know HighImpactVlogs sent you. Maybe one day we can get her on a live stream to discuss her view of the irrational mentality of climate cultists. Liking and sharing this video with everybody you know will help break the YouTube censorship and suppression algorithms and give people like Naomi a fighting chance to get their message out there.